I never imagined I'd be telling this story publicly, let alone on camera, but here we are. If you'd told me a year ago that one day, my husband would ask me to do this with our dog, and that he'd insist on filming the whole thing, I would have laughed and called you crazy. But sometimes life takes strange turns, and what started out as a harmless idea turned into something that changed the way I see my marriage, my husband, and even myself. It all started on a lazy Sunday afternoon. We were lounging on the couch, me, my husband, and our dog, Milo. Milo is our golden retriever, 4 years old, full of energy, and spoiled rotten. He's always been a big part of our little family. My husband, Jake, had been scrolling through his phone when he suddenly sat up and looked at me with this strange excitement in his eyes. "Babe," he said, "I've got an idea. It's going to be hilarious, trust me." Now, when Jake says something is going to be funny, it usually means some kind of prank or awkward challenge. He's always been the kind to chase laughs and push limits, especially ever since he started getting more into filming content for fun. He's not a YouTuber or anything professional, but he loves making videos and sharing them with friends. So when he told me he wanted to record something involving me and Milo, I didn't think much of it at first. I figured it was another silly dog trick or something goofy for Instagram. But then he told me exactly what he wanted me to do, and my stomach dropped. I won't lie, I hesitated. A lot. It wasn't anything illegal, or dangerous, or even inappropriate by most standards. But it was weird. Personal. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I should be flattered, confused, or just straight up embarrassed. Jake kept saying it would go viral, that people would love it. He said it would be a sweet, funny moment, and that I'd thank him later. Still, something about the way he insisted, the way he kept bringing it up even when I tried to brush it off, started to bother me. It wasn't like him to push so hard. It made me wonder if there was something more behind it, some reason he wanted this moment caught on camera so badly. And then came the day he set everything up, the tripod, the lighting, even Milo's little bow tie. That was when I realized this wasn't just some casual home video. Jake had a plan. And whether I liked it or not, I was already part of it. What happened next caught me completely off guard. I wasn't prepared for how it made me feel, or what it revealed about us. But before I get into that, before I tell you exactly what I did on camera with our dog, just know, this story doesn't go where you think it will. And once you hear what happened, you might not see Jake the same way again. To understand why this moment hit so hard, I think you need to know a little more about Jake. When we first met, he was the kind of guy who made everyone feel like they were the only person in the room. Charming, funny, always full of wild ideas. He had this energy that drew people in, like whatever he was doing was the most important thing happening in the world. I loved that about him. Still do, in a way. But lately, that energy has shifted. Ever since he got hooked on creating content, he's been chasing something different. Not just laughs anymore. Views. Attention. Validation from strangers on the internet. It started small, harmless little dog tricks with Milo, cute couple challenges, silly skits. I played along. It was fun. But over time, I noticed Jake getting more obsessed with likes and comments. He started talking about algorithms and timing uploads just right and how we needed to post more often to build momentum. He wasn't just filming for fun anymore. He was building something, though he couldn't really explain what. And suddenly, everything we did was content. Our dinners, our walks, our arguments, it all had the potential to be part of the next big video. That's when I started feeling like maybe I wasn't a partner anymore. Maybe I was just part of the show. And Milo? Poor Milo became the star without even knowing it. Jake started dressing him up, teaching him more tricks, even setting up little storylines for him. People loved it. They called Milo the most expressive golden retriever ever in the comments. Some even started messaging Jake asking when the next Milo video would drop. Jake soaked it all in, and I tried to smile through it, but something about it started to feel off. So when Jake came up with this new idea, something he swore would blow up on YouTube, I was already on edge. He wouldn't tell me all the details right away, just that it involved me, Milo, and a surprise twist at the end. He said keeping it secret would get a more natural reaction on camera. I told him that made me uncomfortable. He said I just had to trust him. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, Milo curled up by my feet, and wondered if Jake was still the same man I married. I knew he loved me. And I knew he loved Milo. But lately, it felt like he loved the idea of going viral more. The next day, the camera was already rolling when I walked into the room. Jake handed me something, small, light, wrapped in tissue paper. "Just open it," he said, smiling. "And act surprised." I looked at him, then at the camera, then down at Milo, who wagged his tail, clueless as ever. I peeled back the tissue paper, expecting something silly. What I saw instead made my heart stop. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because what happened after I opened it, that's when everything started to unravel. Inside the tissue paper was a tiny silver tag. At first, I thought it was a new dog tag for Milo, maybe one of those engraved ones with his name on it. But as I looked closer, I realized it had my name on it. Not Milo's. Mine. And underneath, in Jake's handwriting, it said, "The one who always follows orders." I laughed nervously, thinking maybe it was some kind of joke I wasn't getting yet. Jake just stood there, grinning like he'd just pulled off the prank of the year. "Is this for me?" I asked, holding it up. "What is this supposed to mean?" He just nodded toward the camera. "Just trust me. It'll all make sense in the video. Just clip it on Milo's collar." I hesitated. The tag felt cold in my hand, and something about the way he kept filming made me feel like I was the one on display, not Milo. Still, I clipped it on. The moment it clicked into place, Jake gave me this look, some weird mix of pride and excitement, and said, "Okay, now the game starts." Game? That's when I started to realize this wasn't just a one-off video. Jake had something planned, something bigger than just a viral clip. And I wasn't sure if I was in on it, or the punchline. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. Jake kept filming me when I didn't know the camera was on. Once, I caught him setting up a hidden camera in the kitchen and pretending it was just for a time-lapse. Another time, I found a script, yes, an actual script, with notes about emotional reactions and timed surprises, and even a line that said, "Make her question everything." I didn't know whether to laugh or confront him, or both. At first, I thought maybe it was for a skit. He's done those before, scripted stuff with fake drama. But something about this felt different. More personal. More real. And Milo? He became the centerpiece of it all. Jake started doing these training sessions with him, but they weren't just about sit or stay. They were about leading Milo to react a certain way when I did specific things. Almost like he was trying to control not just the video, but me, too. I started to feel like I was being pushed into a role I hadn't agreed to play. I couldn't shake the feeling that Jake wasn't just making content anymore. He was telling a story. His story. And somehow, he'd cast me as the unwitting star. But what I didn't know then was that the real twist, the part Jake never expected, was already in motion. And it wasn't on camera. Not yet. The night everything came to a head started off like any other. Jake was in the living room adjusting his camera setup while I sat at the kitchen table pretending to scroll through my phone. I wasn't really reading anything, I was watching him. Watching the way he moved with this quiet obsession, adjusting lighting angles, checking the audio levels, rehearsing lines under his breath like it was some kind of movie set. Milo sat nearby, tail thumping every so often, clueless to the growing tension between us. I'd been keeping things to myself, trying to convince myself I was overthinking it. Maybe Jake was just going through a phase. Maybe the secret filming, the odd props, the scripted lines, maybe it was just his creative energy getting carried away. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I could feel it every time he looked at me through the lens instead of with his eyes. Every time he asked me to just react naturally to something he'd clearly staged. That night, Jake asked me to wear the same sweater I wore on our anniversary. "It ties the story together," he said casually, like we were working on some serious production. Then he brought out a second dog tag, this one gold, with the word obey etched into it. He wanted me to switch it with the silver one on Milo's collar, and he wanted me to say a line he had written. A line that made my stomach twist. "I can't say that," I told him, my voice barely above a whisper. He paused, looked up at me from behind the camera. "Why not?" "It's just a line. It's part of the story." "It's not a story, Jake. It's our life. And whatever this is, it's not normal." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's just for the video. People will eat it up. Trust me." But I didn't trust him. Not anymore. Not after finding that storyboard tucked into his notebook last week, complete with thumbnails, plot points, and even fake comments he wanted to seed into the replies. He had it all mapped out. A series. A transformation arc, me, slowly unraveling on screen. All of it centered around me and Milo. And the scariest part? I hadn't agreed to any of it. I stared at the camera, the little red light blinking, and felt this wave of cold come over me. I realized Jake wasn't just telling a story, he was trying to shape reality. Twist our lives into content. And he was willing to keep pushing until he got what he wanted on film, no matter how uncomfortable it made me. He handed me the gold tag again, his voice softer now. "Please. Just one take. If you really hate it, I won't use it." I took the tag, my fingers trembling. Milo barked once, almost like he sensed the tension in the room. I looked down at him, then back up at Jake, who was already counting down. 3, 2. And just before he said 1, something happened that neither of us saw coming. Something that wasn't in the script. Just before Jake could say 1, Milo lunged, not at me, not in fear or aggression, but straight at the tripod. The camera toppled over with a loud crash, the lens slamming against the hardwood floor. Jake shouted and rushed to it, panicking as he cradled the equipment like it was something fragile and sacred. I stood frozen, still clutching the gold tag in my hand, heart pounding so loud I could barely think. But it wasn't just Milo knocking over the camera. That was weird enough. What happened next made my blood run cold. As Jake lifted the camera, the screen still flickering, I caught a glimpse of the footage that had been recording. It wasn't just us in the frame. There were clips stitched together, videos I'd never seen. Moments I had no idea were even captured. Me folding laundry, brushing my teeth, talking to my sister on the phone. All of it without my knowledge. All of it carefully edited with music, titles, and voiceovers. Jake's voice, narrating my life. I didn't even realize I'd moved until I was in front of the screen, scrolling through the saved files. There were dozens of them. Whole folders labeled with dates and tags like Mel Breakdown, Kitchen, Mel plus Milo Sweet, and one simply labeled Finale. I opened the last one. There was a rough cut of what looked like our last video. Jake had edited it to look like I was saying goodbye, not just to the channel, but to everything. It was clipped and rearranged in a way that twisted my words from old videos, private conversations, even voice memos I didn't remember recording. It was haunting. Like watching a version of myself I didn't recognize being used for something I never agreed to. "What is this?" I whispered, but Jake didn't answer. He stood there, caught, his mouth opening and closing like he didn't know which lie to use first. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he finally muttered. Yet. That one word told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just about a weird video. Jake had planned something bigger, something that didn't just involve me and Milo, but ended with us. He had a narrative in mind, one where he controlled the story, the audience, and the outcome. But the thing he forgot was, when you treat people like characters, they eventually stop playing along. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The story wasn't his anymore. I didn't say anything else. I just turned off the camera, slowly, deliberately. Jake reached toward me, maybe to stop me, maybe to explain. Honestly, I didn't care. I walked past him, Milo at my heels, and went straight into our bedroom. I locked the door behind me. My hands were still shaking as I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that gold tag still clutched in my palm. Obey. That word echoed in my head like a bad joke that had gone too far. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up scrolling through the footage on my phone, quietly backing up anything I could find. I dug into old emails, cloud folders, private messages, anything Jake might have touched or tampered with. He'd been building this fake version of me for months. And I'd let him, one okay, fine at a time. But now that I saw it clearly, I knew I had to stop it. The next morning, I told him we needed to talk. No cameras. No, just roll with it. Just us. He tried to act normal at first, making coffee, petting Milo, pretending everything hadn't shattered the night before. But I could tell he was nervous. He kept checking his phone, fidgeting with the charger, glancing toward the living room where the camera used to be set up. I saw everything, Jake, I said, quietly. You weren't just making content. You were rewriting who I am. He didn't deny it. He just said, people love a story. And ours was getting stale. That was the moment I realized he hadn't lost touch with reality. He'd chosen to trade it in for a version where he was the writer, the director, and I was just another asset. My voice, my reactions, my dog, all reduced to pieces of a plot. I told him I was done. That I was taking Milo, and that if he ever used that footage, I'd report him. Not just for privacy violations, but for emotional manipulation. For building a narrative around someone who never gave consent. His face went pale. You can't just walk away. The finale's not done. But it was. At least for him. I left that day with Milo in the passenger seat, his head resting on my arm. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. A week later, I got a message from a stranger. A girl I didn't know, but whose face felt strangely familiar. She said she had seen Jake's videos before they were public. Said she'd once dated him. Said he used to film her too, secretly, quietly, building stories without consent. She ended her message with, "You're not the first. But maybe you'll be the one who finally stops him." And suddenly, I knew, this wasn't just my story. It was bigger than me. And I wasn't just walking away anymore. I was about to expose the whole truth. After reading her message, I sat in silence for a long time. Everything started to make sense in a way it hadn't before. It wasn't just about Jake wanting attention or content, he had a pattern. A calculated habit of turning people into projects. Of blurring the line between real life and storytelling until the people in his life didn't know what was true anymore. I wasn't the first. That thought stayed with me the rest of the day. But maybe, like she said, I could be the last. I reached back out to her, and over the next few days, we talked a lot. She told me stories that mirrored mine, scripts Jake made her read, scenes he staged, private moments twisted for drama. It was like listening to my own life, but through someone else's voice. And as painful as it was, it helped me feel less alone. I wasn't just overreacting. I wasn't being dramatic. I had been manipulated. With her help and with all the evidence I had, screen recordings, the hidden files, and clips Jake didn't know I'd saved, I decided to go public. But not in the way he would have. I didn't want to become another clickbait thumbnail or viral crazy ex story. I just wanted to tell the truth. So I recorded one video. Just one. No background music, no edits. Just me, sitting with Milo, explaining what happened. I talked about consent, privacy, and what it feels like to slowly lose control of your own story. I didn't name Jake directly. I didn't have to. The people who followed us knew. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people who had experienced similar things, from ex-partners of influencers, to people who'd lost themselves in someone else's version of their life. It made me realize this wasn't just a Jake thing. It was bigger. In a world full of content creation, sometimes real people get treated like props. And that's not okay. Jake, for his part, disappeared from the internet for a while. He deleted our old channel. I heard he tried to start something new under a different name, but it never took off. Maybe people saw through it this time. Or maybe he realized stories built on lies don't hold up for long. As for me, I took a break from everything. I focused on real life. I went on long walks with Milo, reconnected with friends, started writing again, not for an audience, just for myself. And slowly, I began to feel like a whole person again. Not a character. Not a subject. Just me. Looking back, I wish I had spoken up sooner. But I know now that speaking up at all matters. Because no one gets to write your story but you. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is take the camera off its stand, turn it around, and finally face yourself, not as content, but as someone who deserves truth, respect, and peace. That's what Milo and I found in the end. Our real life. No script required.